In this episode, we will talk with artist Tenjin Ikeda.
This is The Hidden Critique, where we discuss art, race, and higher education at the intersection of an MFA. I'm Marlon Tobias, pronouns he, him.
And I'm Krystle and Lemonias, pronouns she, her.
Welcome to our show. Tenjin Ikeda is an Afro-Puerto Rican artist born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He initially pursued an education focusing on graphic design, then ultimately shifted to fine arts, where he felt more freedom to express himself. While studying various mediums, he discovered printmaking, which has been his focus for the past 25 years, working mainly in linoleum cuts. It is his desire to continue to visibly show the richness of his ancestry to the world. There are elements of storytelling within his images, from sacred myth and oral traditions that he was raised with, in order to form a narrative of an ancestral foundation, memory, as well as a guide to healing and self-actualization. He has various works in private collections, as well as acquisitions by the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, the Print Club of Albany, and the Art Students League. His work has been featured as cover art and illustrations for various books and have been included in Their Hand magazine, a quarterly publication showcasing various photographic and print processes. He has also been included in Modern Printmaking, a book of 30 contemporary printmakers by Sylvie Covey, as well as Botanical Block Printing by Rosanna Morris. Tenjin, welcome to our show.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course.
We're so happy to have you, Tenjin. And before we get into our really in-depth conversation that we've prepared today, we'd like to really check in with you because mental health is important in life, especially when you're living the artist entrepreneurial lifestyle. How's your heart?
How's my heart? I always say that that's a loaded question because it really is, especially these days. Generally, I'm okay. Just trying to stay balanced and creative and just drowning out the general noise. But generally, I'm fine. But again, it's a very complex question because the emotions go up and down.
Yeah.
And I'm very in tune with that.
I can understand that. Marlon, how's your heart?
My heart is warm. We're in the season of where things are getting colder, and I'm feeling very cozy. So, in spite of our, of course, hectic schedules being artists and entrepreneurs, I feel like I'm in a warm season. So I'm feeling good.
That's a nice warm season.
Yes. How about you, Chris? How's your heart?
Oh, my heart is feeling the pain of a tooth that is trying to bear witness.
Oh no.
But I try not to focus on it, knowing that amongst all the things that the world is experiencing, it is small potatoes. So I am being grateful for what I have and hoping to get that opportunity to see the dentist real soon.
Yes. Well, you know what they always say: when the world gives you potatoes, make French fries. They don't say that, but
we should start saying that then.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you all for sharing. But as we get into our conversation, Tenjin, I really want you to share with our listeners about what are you working on? What are you working on before we get into your background information about your education?
So what am I working on? I'm actually working on a piece that's in two parts. They can either be individual pieces, but they also work together. I've been working on this piece on and off. I think I started the beginning of this year and did some basic drawing and then kind of put it away and then took it back out and kind of creatively struggled with what am I doing type thing. And from then until now, I've actually finished carving about half of it.
Nice.
Which is from, not knowing what I was doing to, having a mini little meltdown about it all, I finished carving half of it. So yeah, it'll be in 2 sections, how I envision it.
Uh-huh.
I want to literally tie them together.
Huh.
So to use some kind of, so print them separately on paper, bring the paper together, punch holes in it, physically tie them together with some kind of natural fiber that hangs from it, and see what happens with that. That's all I got in terms of the vision of what I see. And I want to print it in kind of like an indigo blue color.
Ooh,
I know that much.
nice.
I mean, knowing the graphic quality of your work, mixing it with this natural fiber component that's woven into the paper sounds really delightful.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, if it turns out how it's in my brain, yeah, it should be a really nice piece.
And is that a part of your practice as far as the length of time it takes for you to fully conceptualize a piece?
Well, this piece is unique in the sense that I normally can draw onto the surface of the linoleum, which I do directly. And there's enough information, even though it may not be complete, there's enough information for me to start like going into it, carving, because a lot of my work also is intuitive. So it'll just kind of come to me to add things to it. So this particular section, which is 26 by 31, there's information on it, but it doesn't have the general information that it would normally. So I've been just looking at this, like, what am I doing with this? And then I started just kind of plucking at it, and I've created this kind of textured pattern in it. And so that's what I've been doing. I've just kind of been going with that. Whereas the other section has the traditional, like, all the information that I need, or as much as I need, and I can just start carving and then ad lib with the rest of it. So it's kind of a combination of both worlds.
Yeah, because I think the way that you work creates so much anxiety for me, because I generally have a full plan when I'm about to carve something.
Yeah, no.
And then the marks are more, intuitive. However, I have a sense of place when you're truly you're through and through doing a discovery.
Yes,
you're literally excavating. You're excavating your image out of your substrate.
Yeah, I mean, even if the image, even if it's a figure, a person, like it's basically just a contour drawing with some details, not really that much, but because I've been doing it for so long, I kind of know visually what I want, and I can just kind of achieve that.
Fun. Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit. Tell us a bit about your formal art education experiences that has brought about this.
So my formal art education experiences. So I went to art school, 1986 in New York. But prior to that, you have to kind of prepare to get into art school. And I had no clue what that, I had no clue what a portfolio was or anything like that. But I was given some guidance to be able to do that. And I was also able to take classes on the weekend to build a portfolio. So that's what I did. And I ended up getting accepted to 2 schools. I chose the longer degree one. And that was kind of my journey. It was exciting because it was the first time I had ever been in an environment that was just immersed in art, specifically just for that. Because I'd gone to public school in New York, and my only art experience was myself, just drawing alone in sketchbooks.
Were these private institution experiences the private institutions you were accepted to, like, or were they public SUNY universities? One
is a private university. The other one was part of the SUNY system. Yeah.
Awesome. And so tell us a little bit more about the experiences there. Did you end up finishing that degree? Or if not, like, what were the reasons why you may have not continued?
So I was 17 when I went into art school, and simultaneously I left home to kind of venture out into the world, not for any particular bad reason. It was just time to do it. And I was able to go for one semester. My mother could only afford to send me to school for one semester because I didn't qualify for any kind of loans or grants or anything like that. And so I went there. I was kind of immersed in this exciting new experience. You know, you're drawing, you're painting, you're carrying portfolios, and you're kind of living this romantic art school reality. At least from my perspective, right? You're just going to go and you're going to create and you're going to just do these things. So I did all that, and then I had to drop out because I didn't have any money. But actually, it was the drawing teacher let me stay in his class, even though I wasn't registered. And so I did that for a while, and then eventually just kind of had to drop out. And then I went back because I had to work, got a job, and I went back. I applied to school again. I went back, this time paying for it myself. So I was working a full-time job at a museum and then taking classes at night and then the weekend.
Wow.
And I did that for a while, but I didn't graduate because they told me that I would need to go to school full-time during the day, which was kind of odd. I didn't quite understand that. I thought it was very strange. And then in my, 17, 18-year-old brain, I didn't understand that, maybe I could get a night job or work some kind of alternative, work shift. In my brain was like, well, 9 to 5, and you got to work 9 to 5. And so I kind of struggled with, well, how am I going to do this? And then the thought of like, why do I need art school came into my brain as well, just to be an artist. And I understand, you learn technical things and there's an environment that's involved that you don't, get out in the world. And I understand the importance of it. But for me at the time, just kind of like, well, why do I need this? And that was always kind of something that was there. And I was living on my own and I had to survive. This is New York City. This is the late 80s. So eventually I just kind of just stuck to my artwork and I never graduated. I think I got 2 years worth of credits. And I just did art. I just kind of immersed myself in painting at the time. Yeah.
I know in conversation with you, you've shared a little bit about your informal educational experiences after leaving school. Tell us a little bit about that and how you built this very structured practice that you currently have.
Well, so before going to art school, I was just kind of drawing maybe twice a year, right? I wasn't drawing that much. I would get sketchbooks and I would just kind of do these little small drawings. And then there was just, 50, 90 pages of just blank. And then it wasn't until that I was in art school that I could actually immerse myself in it all the time. So it gave me an environment to kind of cultivate just even seeking out creativity and just art in general, because you're in these classes, and outside of that I would go to bookstores, I would go to museums. I worked at a museum, so I would like scarf down food for 5 minutes and then go into the museum and draw. So I was doing that. So that actually helped my drawing practice a lot more, because it was, it all had to come from me. And it all had to come from a desire to actually do this. And then, I got out of school. I left school, actually. And, I still wanted to be an artist. And that was kind of the most important thing for me to do. So, if you don't have instructors or you don't have the environment or encouragement to do it, you just kind of, that's what I did. I drew, I painted. I eventually, I worked at a hospital at one point with architects and engineers, and that job was really boring because there wasn't a lot of work. And I would take their brown paper that they would use to roll up floor plans, and I would roll out like 8-foot sheets and tack them to the wall. This is at work. And I would bring my pastels, regular pastels, charcoal, oil pastels, pencils, and just start drawing at work, making these like 20. They were, it's like 24-inch paper by 8 feet. And
you had a really nice boss.
Yeah, I mean, it was or something. It's like it's kind of bizarre to think about the things that I did and that I was just able to do, and no one said a word. Like no one said anything. So I did that. So that, and
people around while you were doing this?
Yeah, I had coworkers. I had coworkers. I would go out and chat this Romanian woman, Georgetta. I remember her name, Georgetta Iannuc. She was this little thing. She had some kind of disability, and she was a smoker, and she would drink coffee, but drink it like mud. And we just have these conversations, and then there was an admin there, and I would like chit chat with her. I would talk to my boss, and also I was responsible for the maintaining the hospital's art collection, which was run through the city of New York.
Interesting.
So the New York City Art Council at some point kind of did this project where they kind of collected art, bought art from wherever their source was, and then they would distribute it amongst, kind of city building, institutions and things like that. So I had to archive all that. I had to keep records of it. And if departments within the hospital wanted work, they could come down, they could look at it, choose it, they would hang it up. If they wanted things taken away, we'd do that. And I just spent time drawing. And at the hospital is where I also met Keith Haring, because he came.
You met Keith Haring. You met the Keith Haring. Wow.
Yeah. He came to the hospital to do a project, and they basically assigned me to assist him with whatever he needed. So that's what I did. I hung out with Keith Haring.
That is awesome.
I hung out with Keith Haring at work, and then, I'd see him out and about in the streets. I'd see him out in clubs, and, yeah.
Huh. Okay. So you have this experience at this job. Are there any other formal or informal apprenticeships that you did or participated in with other artists?
Yeah. So from that job, I needed a change, and an artist friend of mine told me that Richard Archwager was hiring at his studio. I had no idea who this person was. And so I went and I talked to the manager of Richard at the time. And I got a job working there as one of, the hands that produce his work. So Richard is a contemporary of like Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, Klaus Oldenburg, these type of people. And at the time he was being represented by Leo Castelli's gallery, which doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And then from there it was like he went to Mary Boone, and from Mary Boone to other places. But so I worked for Richard for 6 years.
Wow.
I worked mostly on his multiples, his editions of sculptures, and working on his frames that they built, and some other kind of projects. But that's mostly what I kind of did.
What do you think you took away from those experiences with working with him?
So, well, that's the reason why I'm able to sit, for hours and focus on a thing for 3 hours, that I'm able to take fine tools and be able to kind of meticulously, carve into something, or because, I spent literally hours and hours bent over with a metal scraper, because he's a sculptor, painter also, but he was a furniture maker turned sculptor. And his sculpture, a lot of his sculpture has Formica on it. And so we have to glue down this Formica on these pieces. And, we have they could be different colors, and they would have to come together in a seamless kind of line. And so at some point you can take a router, you can cut the excess off, but there's still, like less than a 30-second of that there that you have to remove because it could catch on something. So between a scraper and files, you're sitting in a crouched position doing that all day long, 8 hours a day, longer. day after
Wow.
day, months, years, and because it's a certain level.
Yeah.
Like, if someone's showing at Leo Castelli's gallery,
Yeah.
that's kind of the equivalent of what's still around now, like Gagosian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There's an expectation that the work needs to be presented a certain way, look a certain way, right? And
I have a certain finishing.
Yeah, and anyone with an eye can see, like, oh, okay, so we had to do that. And I had no experience in doing that at all. So I was just, actually the first day that I got there, I kind of ruined the piece. And I surely thought, okay, well, I'm done here. But they just moved me on to something else. They were pissed, but they moved me on to something else, repaired it. And, I was there for 6 years.
Wow.
So yeah, just being very meticulous, attention to details, patience, being able to work on a repetitive thing for, just alone 8 hours. I mean, who does that these days? So just being able to do that, learning how to use tools, learning how to build things, all that became very beneficial in making art. Because at the time I was painting, so I would build my own painting surfaces out of wood. Sometimes I took them from crates, but other times I would build them myself. And so I learned how to do all that.
Wow, it's amazing. That is what we call work ethic, developing a strong work ethic.
Yeah, I mean, because it's interesting, because even artists that I talk to, because you're in it at the time, you don't realize like you're learning something that most people don't learn, even artists. So like even talking to artists who are my age or some older, some younger, like they don't know how to use certain basic tools. And it's shocking to me, because I'm just like, okay, well, this is kind of what we do. We figure it out and we make stuff and we build things, but that's not necessarily the case.
Got it. Now, I do want to ask, because you did mention Instagram. So you do have an Instagram, you do post on Instagram. So I wanted to kind of talk about promoting your work. What are some strategies that you implement to build a market for your artwork?
So yeah, I have Instagram, I have Facebook. I am working on a new website. So my website is down temporarily. And between that, talking to people, like we underestimate actually talking to people, physically meeting with people, having conversations
The
about
IRL life, the in real life.
Yeah. I mean, actually, a lot of opportunities that have come to me have been through Instagram, because people are watching you.
Yes.
Like they really are. And you have no clue like what's happening. And all of a sudden someone will dump a little note into my DM. Oh, I'm doing a traveling exhibition with this kind of theme. And I've been looking at your work, and I, just thought about you. Your work is great. And I think it will fit here. And, folks that.
Hold up. Are you in a travel exhibition in Newark?
No.
Oh, okay. Can that remind me of a show that's like moving through Newark?
No. This is something that happened 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from somebody, art professor thingy in Florida.
Nice.
Or a podcast like this. Like, other people have reached out to me, to do a podcast, to talk about work, to be parts of print portfolios. I'm having a show here, or we're doing this show in Eastern Europe, to whatever, or there's a show happening in Menorca, Spain, what have you. My brain thinks, okay, younger people know how to manipulate and use this medium, and they shouldn't really necessarily have an issue with kind of promoting themselves or getting things out there. Again, that may or may not be true, because ultimately, regardless of the tool, there's still you and your ways, and whether you are confident in yourself or not, or whether you believe in yourself or not, or all those things are still factors. But I mean, I just kind of put it out there. I'm at the stage of my life where I'm not stressing on things. It's just, if stuff happens, it happens. I put in the work. I communicate with people, but I've just stopped worrying about, am I going to make it? Is it just going to happen? Or, because you can easily, the reality is that whether it's social media, whether it's even talking to someone, right?
Yeah.
Everything is edited. Our lives are edited. We let people know what we want them to know.
Right.
We share as much as we want. So, if to just blindly look at social media and look at other creative people, and if you don't have a sense of yourself, you're looking at that like, oh, I'm a loser I'm never going to achieve these things. Right? That's one way. Or you can be like, that's something to strive towards. But again, it's all edited. It doesn't mean, like we said, just because you got the grant, just because you're in the museum show, just because that's a thing. And they're still humans, and they still struggle, and they still the thing that they have is their creation. They still create. They're committed to creating. And that's what I do. I'm sure I could be better at the whole social media kind of posting and all that stuff, but it's very exhausting. Like life is exhausting to have to then have another thing that you have to do that changes constantly. It changes constantly.
So true.
So it's this platform, who knows what happens in another year or 2 or 5 years or 10 years, or then it's something else. And you have to, I know artists that are older than me that, that struggle with this. And, they struggle with it, but they're doing it, and they're doing it well. They're doing more than I am.
Yeah.
And then I know artists that are just like, I don't mess with social media at all. I don't have accounts. I don't deal with it. I don't.
But have there been any significant opportunities that you've had, like lately, from your engagement with social media? Or
it's definitely, again, being a part of that, the Flowers book, that you like, that came from. This is a woman in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Who just, again, out of nowhere, reached out to me. Oh, a friend of mine said I should look at your work. So I looked at your work. I'm putting together this book about, printmaking and botanicals and flowers and stuff like that. And I sent her some images of what I had, because she's seen some things, because I like to use a lot of natural kind of imagery. And she was like, perfect, do this. She gave me a set of questions that I had to answer. And that went back and forth, and then it was all good. And next thing I know, I'm in a book.
Very nice.
Again,
that's
like
amazing.
The traveling show that I had, just even finding opportunities, even with the Newark Art Festival.
Yes.
Just seeing that last year. Because again, not everything is, there's so much. So to maintain all of this stuff on your radar is not an easy task.
Yeah.
So, I just happened to see videos of people at the event. And so it was like, okay, well, keep that in your brain for next year. You figure, okay, around April, May, they're starting to put that information. And so that's what I did. And they had their theme. It was a little abstract for me. I was like, well, how could my work fit into this? I didn't really know how. I sent them some images. They chose one of the prints, and I got in.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. Even here, doing this, right?
Yeah.
Right? You emailed me.
I sure did.
You DM'd me.
Yes.
It's like, right? There's another opportunity coming up with the Atlanta Print Studio. There's an artist. I follow her. She follows me. She's putting together like a print portfolio. She asked me to be a part of it. So that will happen. Like, I have to come up with an image and have to have prints to them by, I think, February of next year.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And that brings me to the question, do the sales of your art fund your lifestyle? How do you balance this need to be making, and then also the work of potentially selling the work if you do?
Well, I sell work. I don't sell it enough to fund my life. But I have a gig, and that funds my artwork. And
do you mind sharing what you do?
I basically work in corporate real estate in the back end of it, in terms of building out spaces, maintaining spaces. So when I worked at the hospital, I was in what they called at the time facilities planning.
Okay.
So basically, which is basically the same thing. you have existing, so we were in this hospital, existing space, and if departments needed to move around or expand, then floor plans need to be drawn, kind of what their specifications were, that kind of stuff. And so since I knew how to do mechanical drawing, that's actually how I got that job. Besides, I volunteered.
No. When did you learn mechanical drawing? You didn't tell us nothing about this.
Yeah, I learned a bit of mechanical drawing in high school.
Aha.
And I started working at the hospital I worked. I started volunteering one summer, and I worked for these people. And my first assignment, again, I had no experience. My first assignment was to do a mechanical drawing of an elevator shaft.
What?
So that's what I did.
Wait, so are you working in CAD? You know how to use CAD and that stuff?
No, nope. This is pre-CAD.
Okay.
Wow.
This is all pre-CAD. Yeah. So this is pencils, scales, all that stuff.
Yeah, draft paper.
Drafting tables, all that. This is all pre-CAD. And I was 16 years old.
So you've built an additional income to also be able to make space to do your art from a class you had in high school?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I didn't even think of that like that. Yeah. Just being just as a creative. Again, I don't know how it is now, but as a creative, back in the, I'm 56. I'll be 56 on October 30th.
Yeah.
Artists had a trillion jobs. So I've worked, I've painted homes, I've built staircases, I've done carpentry. I've done this kind of thing where I've had to kind of use my hands and if you didn't know it, you figured it out. And that's just kind of how it was at the time. So I've been a bike messenger. I've worked in museums. So just being exposed to all these things, I've kind of created the life that I have. So this came full circle where I started working with these people, and I knew what the job was. I don't specifically do that anymore now, but I know the lingo. I know how to read floor plans, like all that kind of stuff. So
wow.
Yeah. So it's helped me get this job. I live in my house. It pays for supplies. It pays for framing. And quite honestly, there are very few artists that I know that make a living off their art. And even if they are professional artists doing artwork, they still have a gig.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're teaching at a university.
Yep.
Right? That's still a gig. It's a gig.
It's a gig.
Right? So I know the Paz and Todd. The Paz is the one I danced with. Todd I worked with. They have a place called Topaz Art.
Mm-hmm.
She's a dancer. He's a painter. He performs all this stuff, but they still do things to make additional money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think especially now in this era, who's really working one gig anymore?
This is very much a gig economy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're still in the gig economy. Yep.
Yeah. People have all these different things. And I think you need that. You need to kind of have that.
Mm-hmm. So lastly, we're assuming that these skills that you have developed from high school to apprenticeship to just taking up opportunities that friends be putting down, this is all going to come together to afford aging, because it's inevitable,
or what most
right?
would say retirement, what most would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you retire as an artist.
Right.
I hear artists say that, and I think it's very strange.
Yeah, that's why I phrase it as affording aging, because it's not like we're going to stop making. It's that our bodies are changing. It is inevitable that it's going to change. And what we've been able to do as young people into our 50s, 60s, and they're up, it changes. Yeah. So has the life that you've built for yourself gonna help you to afford aging?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I've done the proper planning and all those things. I mean, there are areas that I need to definitely focus on in terms of okay, how do I sustain this aspect of my life?
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have had a well-rounded experience in life. And there are things that I know, there are things that are still important to utilize now as I get older. But hopefully I've done all the things I need to do.
Wonderful. And what are you currently doing that is not paid labor and only for your creative nourishment?
What am I doing? Well, house music season has ended, which is a very disappointing thing for me.
Oh, sorry.
But I did go to an opening last night.
Yeah.
Kind of the second part of this arts festival.
Yeah.
And they did have a DJ there, and they were playing a little bit. And I was dancing a little bit.
Yeah. And, was it good? Was it good?
Yeah, it was okay. It was kind of low, but I'm the guy that always dances.
I know.
While everyone stands around, and then they just kind of look at me.
Yeah.
And I don't care. But yeah, just trying to enjoy life, just trying to stay encouraged, going to brunches, hanging out with folks. I'm going to go see some shows. Elizabeth Catlett has a show at the Brooklyn Museum that I'm looking forward to seeing. I just saw that Simone Leigh is going to have an exhibition in New York in November, which I love her work so much. Yeah, just trying to enjoy life and be encouraged because, good, bad, and different, all of it fuels the creative process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's all right. It's all part. Even when I'm not working, I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm not sitting down, it's like, because it's all like the mind is always kind of going and thinking about stuff, and eventually it'll just spill out and become something. Like I already have another idea that I'm going to work on. It's based on something tragic that just happened. So.
Oh.
Well, Tenjin, thank you so much for all of the jewels that you dropped, all the gems that you dropped today. I would say personally, you definitely affirmed me in regard to maybe some of the things that I'm going through, or there's some of the things that I think about. It definitely made me feel a little bit normal in a sense.
Oh, I'm glad. Like we need that, don't we? Like we all need it. We all need to know, like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah. And you definitely, and you're also giving me a lot of hope because Chris and I we're a little bit younger, so you're definitely giving us a lot of hope on what our futures may present for us moving forward as we continue. So just thank you again. But before we let you go, we want to allow you the space to, have a little shameless plug. So you do have an Instagram. What's your Instagram? How can we follow you? And what's also next up for you?
So Instagram is Tenjin _Ikeda. I'm also on Facebook, Tenjin Ikeda. Again, like I said, I'm working on my website. This show is up at the Newark Arts Museum until December 1st. This portfolio is kind of coming up beginning of the year. There's some other opportunities that I'm still kind of working in terms of shows for next year. And I'm just trying to also now see how I can become more international. Right? So, because there's a tendency of just, we live here, we just think here. And I've had a taste of that, but it's just like, okay, how do we take this show on the road?
Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful.
How do we get out of these boundaries?
Well, we hope to be helping with that with this podcast here.
Yeah, you're a part of you're already
Fingers
part of the journey. You're already part of the journey.
Oh, thank you.
I definitely appreciate that you thought of me and asked me to do this.
Of course. And thank you again for your time. Now we're at the point of the show where we want to hear from you, the listeners. Join us on Instagram and Patreon to share your thoughts on these two questions. 1, what were some significant informal learning experiences have you had to develop your art practice? And 2, outside of your art, what practical skills have you acquired to help fund your creative endeavors?
Thank you for listening to our episode. The Hidden Critique is produced and hosted by us, Krystle Lemonias and Marlon Tobias. Episodes are edited by Kirsten Pettifor. Original music composed by Cesar Presa.
If you like the show, you can review and rate this podcast via Spotify. You can also like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube page.
For exclusive bonus content, subscribe to our Patreon at The Hidden Critique.